Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Jericho, and this is going to be episode 9 of the Angst Podcast. Just a little bit of house cleaning before we start today's topic. I just wanted to go over, in case you guys missed episode 1, or maybe this is the first time that you're tuning into the podcast, I just wanted to kind of remind everybody why I started this channel in the first place. The idea was that I was just going to go over topics that I deemed kind of interesting, maybe arguments that I wanted to make or opinions that I had. These are concepts that I deem maybe kind of interesting or that I've had conversations with my friends or my family. And often these topics I think are kind of important. I mean, I'm only trying to pick interesting, relatable, something that maybe affects society as a whole or human beings as a species, and that everybody can kind of contribute to and discuss and have their own opinions of. And in one way, hopefully I can come up with some cool ideas and share some cool opinions that I have. And in another way, this is kind of a learning experience for myself, and I'm kind of reaching out to a larger community, and hopefully I'm going to get some opinions back and some facts back that I didn't know or I've never perceived before. That's what's kind of cool about podcasts and the internet is, I mean, in the past, you would have grown up and you would have had a group of individuals and peers in a community. And for the most part, it's really easy for ideas to crisscross. You can get, a certain opinion or a certain way of behaving or a certain ethical code. And this might be very common among your peers, your colleagues, maybe religion. In theory, this is what culture is that it's a certain group of individuals that, have certain traditions and beliefs and a structure. That's kind of your culture. And so this is, built into our nature. But what happened is that the internet busted on scene, and this gave us all a huge opportunity to interact with your common man, in another, for lack of a better term, without having to be there, without having to actually be in the room. And that's a huge advantage because the outreach that you have of opinions and information is, undeniably and obviously available to you now. And that's what's really interesting. And that's why I do this channel. That's why I try to share these ideas or come up with these topics that, might not come up in your day-to-day existence. People are really busy. If you live in a first world country right now, a lot of things are taken care of for you, and it's, definitely easier than it's been. But that also means that your schedule is bombarded with, whether it's you have to cook, maybe you have to drive the kids to soccer practice, you want to have a social life to an extent. You should probably maintain your fitness and your health. That means you need to go to the gym. If you're going to go to the gym, you should probably stretch. Now you should watch what you're eating, so you should be a good cook. Right? Like, these are things you must work on. Also, you should balance your mind a little bit so you don't become too stressed out while you're doing all these things and while you're paying a job and trying to balance, spousal, marriage relationships, whatever it may be. And there's a lot for people to handle and deal with. And so in your day-to-day rat race, it's very easy for your conversations to become somewhat superficial or maybe a little bit repetitive or mundane. These conversations, for example, may include, the weather, hey, or how about that sports team? You catch the game? And there's nothing wrong with these conversations. I mean, I enjoy, conversations with my peers and with people in my community. And, no matter how basic they are, it's kind of nice to chat. I am a bit of a people person myself. But the problem is that, you don't get into the grittiness of people. You don't get the raw opinions. You don't get the real data about what people think and how they feel and what makes them tick. And I think that's what's kind of cool is, this might be a platform where we get to see more and more kind of how people work. In one way, the internet's kind of a massive case study of our society. It's kind of looking at all of us and how, our social media profiles look and what influences there are and what trends roll through and kind of how we all behave. Anyways, guys, I'm getting way off topic because I actually want to talk about something else in this video. But the reason that I brought all this up and I'm talking about my channel here and now is just because I recently had this comment on this from this guy. And it was something to the extent of, real funny channel. You're going to talk about being an adult and, decisions you should make, yet you're playing with toys. And he was referring to video games, or specifically Overwatch, the game that we're all watching now. And, in one way, he's got a good point. It's kind of funny. And in another way, he totally misinterpreted the idea behind the channel. The idea behind this channel wasn't that I was going to come in and I was going to wear a suit and be all polished and clean edited and scripted and then preach facts that you are already probably available if you look hard enough online. Instead, what I was going to do is just kind of level with you guys. And I'm just going to try to create logical arguments and weird thoughts that have popped into my outrageous brain and share them and see the kind of the feedback I get and what people think and if others are like me or if I'm out to lunch on some of these topics. It's kind of a self-experiment for me and for you guys. I mean, hopefully we have some fun with it. And that guy's just the reason that I put video games behind the channel is just to keep it simple. I want people to know that we're kind of having fun with this and to not take it too seriously. I mean, life's not that serious. And some of these topics are going to be crazy. I'm going to say some shit I might regret. I don't know. So I just want people to remember that I was playing video games at some stupid YouTube channel just in case I fuck up. But anyways, guys, for today's topic, I am actually going to be going back into episode 8, and I'm just going to be going over a couple more ethical issues because I think I missed the mark on some of the points I was trying to make, or at least I didn't make enough. I mean, this is a huge topic, and I'm sure I'll keep coming back to it. But one of the things that I kind of want to start with is that as these ethical scales, now that we understand ethics between people obviously vary tremendously, there's not always a right and wrong answer. There may be gray areas that you even struggle with in your own life. Now that we've looked at all of that, who's going to be in charge if in a future generation or in the next millennial here, we jump into an artificially intelligent, or decade, I should say, not millennial. We're right here. If we jump into a decade of automation, artificially intelligent machines, self-driving vehicles, to a certain extent, these pieces of computers, or these computers and these pieces of machinery are going to have ethical codes. And I mean, who's going to make those ethical codes and program for those ethical codes? If a Tesla's driving down the road and it's on an automated mode, and there's a circumstance that plays out that is unavoidable, and the car must choose between killing a pedestrian that maybe is a mother and a child, or killing a lone driver in the vehicle by driving off a bridge or into a railing. I don't know, whatever the scenario may play out. You guys think of one. Who's going to put the ethical coding into that machine? I mean, well, we're probably going to say we'll weigh the odds. I mean, we'll put in the probability of what scenario is going to happen in either case, and the computer will instantaneously calculate the probability of what is a more likely outcome that will be positive. And that then it'll run that algorithm, and that solves it right there. But I mean, that's only for this one scenario in this small little unique case. I mean, to a certain extent, these things are going to have a programmed ethic. I mean, one of those ethics should be don't hurt people, right? Assuming it ever gets to the point where we have AI that's just walking around, it has a body or an ability to move on its own. I mean, don't hurt people would be a nice little ethic to program into it, don't you think? That's probably something we're all going to want to have in the pieces of equipment that we choose to purchase that run on their own. I mean, it's going to have ethics, and who's going to be in charge of those when we already understand that adults don't always agree on these concepts? I mean, is the government going to step in? Are private companies going to step in? And I mean, this could get out of play here a little bit. Like, here's another one. Let's say virtual reality. It's on the doorstep. If you guys are playing PlayStation Overwatch right now, you can literally buy a VR headset for your PlayStation. We're already essentially there. It just needs to polish up. So what happens if, we get to a point where VR, come on, boys, let's know, you're watching porn a little. It's going to be good, right? It's going to be probably the best porn ever. You're going to be in the scenario. You're going to watch porn. It's going to probably be a huge market and drive that industry, if I'm not mistaken. We can watch it play out, but I'm sure it's going to affect it. Anyways, porn comes out. Well, let's say I want to download, questionable porn. Maybe it's a little bit abusive. Maybe somebody in the video has been hurt. Maybe something in the video is, let's say there's a rape scene. Let's say there's maybe child pornography. We could put that in. But here's the deal. It's edited. It's graphics. It's not real. It's not real images. It's graphically built. I mean, there might already be laws for this, and in which case maybe they could affect VR, but think of how many technologies are going to come out and how quickly the laws are going to adapt to such new technologies that have ethical gray areas. I mean, I don't think it's an ethical gray area to not have child pornography in VR. I think that's something that should probably not occur. But who's going to monitor that? Governments have to step in. Laws have to be made. That takes time. Does Sony get to have a say? Does the developer get to have a say in what content's available? What's artistic expression versus what's... it's tough, right? And these are all things and technologies that are going to be new, and we're going to have to call into question. I think already to a certain extent, I mean, humans are so different, right? Like, we're already kind of programmable ourselves. If you look at how humans kind of work to a certain extent in the past, if you look at religion, I mean, that's a series of ethics that if you believe in the religion, you should probably follow, right? So, I mean, that's a person that, now has been pre-programmed in by their God. But I mean, here's the thing, there's religions all over the place, and some of these religions are a lot larger than others. And so if you say those ones are whack, well, I mean, there's a lot of people that follow them and they base their ethical codes around them. I mean, we see that in the world all over the place, right? Is what people are willing to do for religion and what sacrifices they'll make, and maybe what guidelines they'll make all of their decisions around. based off of, in theory, a text or a script or a book. I mean, that's just as programmable as AI, right? Like that's a huge thing where you're taking pre-written information and you're deciding that is the ethical code that you're going to make all of your decisions on. And hopefully it's right. And hopefully, I mean, for the most part, a lot of these religions do follow really nice, smooth ethical codes. Don't kill people, don't steal people, but not always. And I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how people can get changed and manipulated just because they have a belief in something or they've been told something. And that can change maybe all of the outcomes or the circumstances they choose to live their lives. I think what's kind of even really interesting is that as I've grown up, I've started to kind of realize if there's a degree of separation off, I may be okay with the ethic. Let me give you a couple of examples. One of them is purchasing mutual funds or purchasing stocks. And this one's kind of an interesting guy because you're investing in a company, you're a stockholder in a corporation. But what if this corporation in any way, shape, or form is unethical? So here's a scenario. Let's say that I'm looking at the trends. I understand to a certain extent that this is about to blow up, or they're about to announce something, or there's about to be a split. I'm not an economist, but whatever's about to occur, I think that this stock is going up in the next couple months. I buy. But I know this company is dumping oil into the ocean somewhere, or maybe I've heard that there's a couple of suicides happening at their factories, wink, wink. Maybe that there's, they use child labor in certain circumstances or have had some unethical decisions in the past. Well, I know that it's going to make me a lot of money in my own personal life. And all I'm really doing is just putting a little bit of my income into an account. It's all done automatically on a computer for me. I don't have a human-to-human interaction whatsoever. And in no way, shape, or form am I supporting child labor or this unethical act. I mean, I'm just trying to make a buck and be a smart investor. But, as a human being, where's your ethic lie? Where do you have to draw the line? I talked in the last episode a little bit about a personal one about factory farming for myself. Here's another one that I think a lot of people really get kind of upset about, and that's animal testing in general. The idea behind animal testing is that it's pretty bad. I mean, for the most part, you're not going to take a little creature or something innocent and cute and then just succumb it to a life of living in cages and being, shot up with needles and injected with, issues and potentially dying in a lot of these circumstances. They're the testers. It's not good. It's not good to have these unknown substances on you. Bad things can happen. So there's definitely animal rights activists, and that's their ethic that we should never do this. Here's the gray area about life, though, and that's something that I've just realized growing up is there is a benefit to what we've done here and what we've achieved and where we are as a society with the products that we have in the industries that makeup is a huge one that's occurred. Food safety is a huge one that has occurred. Medicines and pharmaceuticals and vaccines are massive, massive animal testing markets because this is the only way that we could ever say we're going to put this random shit in a family member or a friend or another human being. We can't just start there. It's very crazy and we don't want to do that. At the end of the day, we're team human. And it's unfortunate. Everybody wants to be team everybody, and that's great, but we are to a certain extent team human, and we can't just start fucking up humans. You guys all remember Harambe? That gorilla should have been shot. I mean, it sucks. It really sucks. But it's like, there's a kid in that cage. And I know those parents are idiots. And I know that there was a huge, neglect. Where were they? This is, we can point fingers all day. But we got to remember that we're team people. And then when there's a massive gorilla with that tiny kid, that is such a liability factor. And it's such a dangerous factor that decisions need to be sometimes made. And to a certain extent, I mean, that's an ethical gray area because it's the same with animal testing. If we're going to look at what our society's been able to achieve and the advancements that we've been able to make and what we've been able to do just as a whole and as a species through unethical gray areas of testing on creatures and potentially murdering creatures and forcing them into a not so great existence has hugely benefited us. Hugely. Hunting in general has hugely benefited us. If we weren't hunters, if we didn't go around killing animals from day one, our rate of success in this species and our ability to survive 1,000 years ago would have been null. We would have had no chance. We couldn't have been just vegetarians our whole time. We needed to learn. Anyways, I mean, I'm just trying to point out there's a lot of parts of our society or aspects of our world where I think people can understand, or at least opinions we can think of, where we know, okay, maybe there's not a right or wrong. Maybe there's not a black and white. And where I left off with last episode was that I kind of just talked a bit about how I think this scales up. I think if we look at from an adult and a person-to-person basis, it's already hard to have decisions and ethics that are always the same or always the best. How is a government or a society of 300 million, 7 billion people ever supposed to achieve ethical directions or outcomes that they want to have? How are we supposed to, as a whole, say this is for sure the route we're supposed to be on, and that this is where we're going to go and we're just going to achieve it? When even in, you could say, oh, that's because, we have parties, so we'll vote the party and then they'll move in that direction with the party. Even that doesn't work because we've already established on a person-to-person basis, there's still huge ethical gray area. There might not be right answers, people. And just because somebody puts on a suit and talks really smooth and is all prepared and makes it sound like he's got an answer, sometimes there isn't. And it can be frustrating. I get it's frustrating. And this is kind of the system locking up right now, is that we realize there's so many decisions to be made and there's so many opinions and everybody has a voice on the internet and everybody's fed up and upset about some circumstance or some issue. And we don't necessarily have the resources, or there might not even be capable of solving all of the things that we need to solve. And I think that's nuts, right? I think it's scary, it's freaky, and I think that's why the world's freaking out right now. I think that's why America's in lashes, and I think that's why the political systems seem to be fumbling all over the place, is because I think it's really fucking hard. It's just the fact that we're humans and that this is our existence and what we're doing. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to add a couple more points onto that last episode. Hopefully this sums up a little bit more just kind of the importance of ethics and why we talk about this shit. And I really appreciate you guys listening to that one. It was a little bit longer than normal and I kind of went off a few times, but it really means a lot that you guys are still supporting it. So we'll see you next time.